Hey, what's up, my friends? There are two things I think you should know about this Amazon Basics scale before you buy it. I'm going to talk about those two things in just a minute. But first, I want to run over some of the features and how to use the scale so you can get a good idea of what it's like to actually use it. There are lots of options for these scales in this price range, and it's really nice to know exactly what you're getting and what you're looking for. Maybe you wouldn't even know to think about some of those things until you watch this video. So let's dive in. First thing I want to talk about is it's a little bit thicker than other scales that I've had before, and it has a little bit more surface area. It's not a lot, it's still pretty thin. Storing it's not a problem. You're gonna be able to put it in the cabinet, forget about it when you're not using it. And it's super lightweight. It's easy to use, easy to move around the kitchen, all of that sort of stuff. Now, the weight is measured between the platform, which I'm calling this the platform, and the base. Some of these scales are measured, they measure the weight on the feet. I actually like that it measures the weight here better, so that if there's something under the feet or something, messing up the feet, making them different, it's not throwing my weights off. I think this gives me a little bit less user error to have the weight measured between this platform and the base. Next is the LED features, and there are two operational buttons here, and I'm going to talk about what those do in just a second. It's powered by two AAA batteries that come with the unit, and they're just here in the back. The batteries last a really long time. These are Amazon batteries, so they don't typically last as long as like a Duracell or something like that, but they do come with the unit. Use those batteries until they die, and it'll be a long time, and then replace them with whatever batteries you tend to use. I also want to talk about the rubber feet. You can see there are 6 rubber feet, and they are very non-slip. And that's meaningful, especially when you've got flour and stuff on the countertop. I want this to stay still, especially when I'm putting my flour in or my water in and banging things around. I don't want this moving and giving me a wrong reading. So that's another thing, is that I look for these rubber feet to make sure that they're going to both protect my countertops and it's not going to move around on me when I'm using it. All right, let's dive in and talk about how to use this scale. Okay, so I've got my sourdough starter here. I'm just going to use this to demonstrate some of the weights and some of the features of this scale. But to turn it on, you just hit this right button here. That's the power button. Now, it's also the zero out button. So I'll talk about that in just a second. Don't worry about that for now. Over here you have units. So this is where you're going to change the units. Now, one thing that this scale does not have is it doesn't have a pure ounce setting. What I mean by that is if you exceed 16 ounces, it's going to put a pound on there. And if your recipe tells you 26 ounces or 24 ounces, you're going to have to do the math of this. There's 16 in the one, and then whatever is remaining. I really prefer there to be a pure ounce measurement, because some of my recipes do that, and then I end up having to do unnecessary math. But that's not a huge issue. I wouldn't let it deter me from using this unit. So you have pound and ounce. Then you also have milliliters. You have fluid ounces, so that if you're measuring water and milk and that kind of stuff, then you can use that. And then there is grams. A lot of my recipes are in grams, and grams are typically a little bit easier when you're messing with your recipe. If you're doing the math to either double your recipe or reduce it to half, that kind of stuff, grams is often helpful, or the recipe just might be in grams. So having those is useful. I'm going to hit it back over to ounces, and we're going to throw the starter on here, and you can just see. Now, one thing about this LED screen is it's big, which I appreciate. It's a good size, so I can see it pretty easily. The one thing I think it's missing is a backlight. I do wish there was a backlight, because once you get flour on here and stuff like that, sometimes it's challenging to see, and the units that the scales that have a backlight are just a little bit easier to see when you're using it. Now, let's talk about the zero out feature. So I have this on, it's 1 pound 10 ounces, 1 pound 10.2 ounces. Now, when I feed my sourdough starter, I'm going to add 2 ounces flour and 2 ounces water. So I need to be able to zero this out and take into account count for the jar and the starter that's already in there. So all I have to do is press that button and it zeroes it out, and then whatever I add will add that weight. So I'd add my flour to 2 ounces, and then I would hit it again and add my water to 2 ounces. So I can really zero that out. It's really, really helpful. Of course, it has this nice stainless steel surface that's really easy to clean and disinfect, so I can keep all of that clean. These buttons do have some cracks in them. So as you use it, there is the potential for food to get down into those cracks and get a little bit messy. But I've been able to keep the food out of it or clean it pretty well as I've used it. And again, obviously went to minus because I took the weight off, and I can just zero it out by pushing down. The zero out feature is really fast. I've had other units that it has to think for a minute before it zeroes it out. It's not a huge problem with those, but this one I love that it's really fast. So it's a really good basic kitchen scale that I've loved using, and I hope you like it as much as I do.